Hello, viewers and distinguished panel. Thanks for being here today. I want to start off this panel from the 1968 Boardwalk Bowl game by thanking WIUP TV, Kelly and Chris and your staff. Really appreciate your support. My name is Bob Strauss, and I was the center on the 1968 Boardwalk Bowl football team. It's an honor to have the opportunity to introduce the members of our panel today, our distinguished panel. We have head coach Chuck Clausing, and we have one of our defensive coaches, Ed Ryseski, and we also have one of our team captains and a member of the IUP Sports Hall of Fame, Bob Tate, and another member of the IUP Sports Hall of Fame, Jerry Clark. Please bear with me as I give a little background leading up to today's event. In September of 2013, the IUP Athletic Office found the film of the first and fourth quarters of the Boardwalk Bowl game. 45 years after the game, we finally found video. From that discovery, Jerry Clark, Bob Tate, and myself, we started to search for the second and third quarters. Assisted greatly by Wally Stapleton of the IUP Fund Development Office, we were able to locate a Delaware player by the name of Sam Brickley, who, by the way, caught the pass on our 11-yard line during Delaware's last drive in the fourth quarter. But Sam provided us a DVD with the last 6 minutes of the second quarter and all of the third quarter. With those resources, we were able to create a DVD of the game with the exception of 9.5 minutes of the second quarter, and we overlaid that video with ABC TV audio broadcast provided by Dan Cox's family. Now, it's also interesting to note that we received WDAD audio files from Ray Goss, and as we put together a final product, we'll also be incorporating those audio files. Before we move forward with some questions and answers specific to the Boardwalk Bowl, we want to get comments from then Athletic Director Chuck Clausing and Coach Ed Ryseski about the elevation of IUP university status to university status in 1966 and how attaining the university status affected the IUP athletic programs. Jerry Clark will now proceed with specific questions.
Thanks, Bob. As Bob mentioned, our main focus today is the Boardwalk Bowl. But we also want to spend some time on the '68 season and the events leading up to the Boardwalk Bowl. So getting started with the first question for both Coach Ryseski and Coach Clausing is, again, getting back to the university status question. At the start of the 1966 football season, IUP was the only school in the state college system with university status. Why did our university status in 1966 affect our membership in the PSAC?
I feel that we were kicked out of the conference, and I think they were very jealous of us and were afraid that having university status gave us a great advantage.
Coach Ryseski?
I think what Chuck said is correct. I think you have to understand that the schools in the state system had all been looked upon as being the same, and this took place over a number of years. This just didn't happen in '66 and '67. But a previous president by the name of Dr. Pratt had pushed for the university, pushed for IUP to get university status. And we had a very good friend over in Katanning by the name of Dr. Peckin, who took this to the state legislature. And through some hard work on his part and a little bit of a miracle, he got the university status for IUP. Well, none of the other schools were given university status. All the schools looked upon us as getting something that they wanted that they could not get. As a result, they didn't feel that they could compete against us. So they sort of pushed us out of the state sports program, and they forced us to go and schedule games with Northwood, with Ball State, with Norfolk State, schools all over where we could get a game. But this was their way of kind of, I don't want to say getting back at us, but letting us know that they were not happy because of what happened. And for years, that has stayed with the university. It kind of lessened here the last 4 or 5 years when all the schools in the system were given university status.
One follow-up question to that. Did it affect all the other sports in addition to football? So no one could compete for a PSAC championship in basketball or track and field or baseball? So there was no PSAC championships available to IUP at that time then? Is that correct?
I'm not saying that there weren't any PSAC championships available for IUP in some of the other sports. They made it difficult on football and basketball based on the fact that they either knew or they had an idea of the number of grant in aids or scholarships, whatever you want to call them, that we could give now that we were a university.
Okay, great. Next question. Besides that competition, it seems like with PSAC and IUP and university status, I also recall that there was competition between the NCAA and their small college division and the NAIA. At that time, we were the NAIA. We competed in a lot of sports for NAIA, but we also, it seemed like, was the NCAA also trying to get us to enroll at that point?
The NCAA, it was more difficult to get into a basketball playoff, baseball playoff, and even football playoff. And we were fortunate that we were recognized to have a good football team, and that's why we were extended an invitation to the Boardwalk Bowl.
Okay.
At this time in the school's development, we had a number of individuals, especially one individual here, was on the NAIA committee. And this gentleman did a heck of a job enabling IUP's other sports, not football, other sports, to get recognition through the NAIA, especially our basketball program. Our basketball program every year competed in that NAIA program, and as many of you remember, they used to go to Kansas City. That was the big thing, to make the NAIA playoffs in Kansas City. And we had some very successful teams in that program. The NCAA made it more difficult for our basketball teams and some of our other sports than what they did for football to get into a program or to get into a playoff game. So the football usually stuck with the NCAA, the basketball and the other sports, and for a long time went with the NAIA.
Well, one more question about the PSAC. What changed that enabled us to get back into PSAC? I think it was like 1971 or 72 we got back in PSAC, and what changed between the, say, college system and IUP that they accepted us back into the PSAC?
Well, once the other schools got university status,
Okay.
then it was easy.
Okay, it was a natural progression at that point then to get
Yes.
back into the PSAC.
What you have to understand is that during the time that most of this was taking place, we had a president by the name of Dr. Pratt, who was one tremendous president who had a very definitive vision for IUP. And he knew where he wanted this university to go. And he was, I don't want to use the word hell-bent, but he was determined where he was going to get this school. He was on his way to getting us there when he was struck with a health misfortune. And we brought in another president who was a tremendous person academically, who did not have the desires along the athletic end of it to proceed, because he felt that it would take away the sports program, if we pushed it too hard, would take away from the academic end of it. And this president toned things down, put his tomahawk away, and went to the state system. And that's basically how we ended up back there. There's a few other things involved, but that's basically how we ended up back there.
Great. Well, let's go into the beginning of the 68 season. The 67 team had a record of 9-1 entering the 68 season. The defense had 11 players that were considered starters at one point or another in 67. We lost one linebacker, one defensive tackle, one defensive back. Coach Ruseski, with that group coming back, what were your expectations on that returning group?
Let me say that we had the highest of expectations from that group. First of all, we were dealing with quality individuals. Quality men who also had some good leadership for the younger boys, because we had a number of transfers in there. And they all worked together and wanted to succeed, and they were willing to work. It was a little different time then than what it is now. If you talk to some of the older players, you will know that's a little different time. We did things in training that I'll tell you right now they'd probably haul me to jail for. But those were different times. We had the boys who adapted to it. They wanted it, and we had the expectations that we were going to get it. And they worked with us, and we had the coaching staff, and the organization was given to us by Coach Klossing that set the stage for the 68 season.
Well, I have one question on defensively, and from 67 to 68, dealing with Bob Tate. When you look at 67, Bob Tate's on all fours as a middle guard, and Duke is a linebacker. When you look at the 68 season, Bob is off the ground, he's a linebacker, and Duke is on all fours as a middle guard. What was the reason for that change between those two positions and those two players?
Well, like any other program, you evaluate what you're working with, okay? You got to understand, when we put Bobby Tate down on all fours at the middle guard, we had to look to find him. And he had to look to find out where he was going.
Well, listen,
I
I want to answer this question.
Hey, well,
Do you-
I'm just kidding.
I know.
I'm
Do you
just
know what the reason was?
Yeah.
I was taller than Duke. I could see over the line, and he couldn't. So Duke was down on all fours, and I was up.
There were two reasons for it. And the reasons were, number one, Duke was a little quicker in his movements. And with Chuck Klossing's defensive philosophy, we went into these games knowing that we were going to put on, on the defense, a lot of movements. And we wanted the linemen to be able to move and move quickly, and the linebackers to pick up what was coming through. And we put this all together, and we figured that Duke was the quicker of the two people, and we put Duke down, we put Bobby up. As far as we were concerned, both guys could play either position and do a heck of a job with it. But the speed and the quickness is what we looked at when we made this decision, because our whole defense centered around the 50 defense with the A, the B, the C, and the different stunts that we had with it. These were tremendous guys. They were hard guys, but they weren't real big guys. And everything was based on quickness.
Very good.
Bobby, don't.
No, that's
don't.
I remember,
Yeah.
yeah. But again, I was taller too.
Yeah.
man.
Coach Clausing, on offense, you had 8 starters returning and 4 additional lettermen returning. I'd ask you the same question we asked Coach Rosecki about the defense in regards to the offense and special teams. What was your expectations or thoughts about the offense you had coming back in the '68 season?
Well, there were high expectations. You know, our quarterback was experienced. We had a pro-style gifted wide receiver in Dave Smith, and we wanted to get the ball to him. And so we had high expectations, and we felt very fortunate to have the personnel that we had coming back.
Yeah, Danny Cox coming back too, I think, at running back.
Yes,
that
very
was
good running back. And when a year later, I think Larry Monsilovich came up, and we were able to do some switching to take advantage of him.
Right. Well, I can recall that offensive line with Bob Strauss at center, Pujo at guard, Proquet at tackle. I mean, that's a nice basis to run your offense off, realizing you have those kind of guys up front.
We were very high in our expectations.
Well, again, Coach Clausing, in regards to personnel, we all played 66 through 68, and we can all remember, as Coach Rosecki referred to earlier, about transfers coming in. I mean, we had people like Dave Smith transferred from Waynesburg. They got Bobby Pastine, Mike Priest, Skip Rosso. I'm sorry. What was it in that era that enabled you to find quality transfers? I mean, what was the environment like at that point in time, having guys transfer in or finding transfers?
Contacts were the big thing. Having been at West Point, you know, I had contacts with people all over the country, and we got 2 or 3 players from West Point, but from several other schools. So
Yeah, I remember Ed Undra, who was the defensive end,
yes,
came from West Point.
Right.
yes.
Bruce Leonetti.
Bruce
So,
Leonetti.
Yeah.
The contacts were a great advantage to us.
Great. Coach Rosecki, a little bit about you on a personal basis. How did you become associated with the IUP coaching staff?
What you have to understand is, of course, I was originally from Indiana. I was a dumb farmer from out by Ernest, okay? And I went away to school. I taught a couple years down in the Philadelphia area. Then I moved back to Blairsville. The first week I was back there, I got a call from a gentleman by the name of Bernie Ganley, who ended up being my boss a few years later. But he called me and he said he and Owen Darty wanted to meet me in his office. So, of course, I came up and I met with them. And it so happened that, again, Dr. Pratt was the president. And we talked a little bit with Dr. Pratt. And the coach then was a gentleman by the name of Chuck Bills, who had a real different philosophy on coaching, a keen philosophy and a successful philosophy. But he didn't spend too much time here, and he happened to be away at the time. So they hired me without him even knowing I was coming on the staff. Because he would leave right after spring ball, and then he would return in about August the 15th. But Doc, Bernie Ganley, and Dr. Pratt are the ones who hired me and put me on the staff. That's how I got here.
Well, continuing that theme about coaching staffs, Coach Clausing, when you came to IUP, how did you assemble your coaching staff when you first came to IUP?
Well, I observed what the good job that the part-time coaches were doing, and I was on the lookout for any assistant we could pick up. It wasn't easy because there
pay
wasn't
was
many openings. We did a great job of in-service training, and we worked real hard in developing a staff.
And how did you become the head coach at IUP? How did that come to be?
Well, it's funny. I was an applicant for the head coaching job in Long Island, New York, in the Merchant Marine Academy, and there were three people in the final interview, and I was to be second, and the first guy was already in there, and the third guy was sitting next to me was Sam Ritigliano, who was a high school coach in Long Island at the time and then became a great pro coach. And I said, Sam, who's the other guy in there? He says, well, I have ways to find out. I'll let you know. But the first guy was a guy that got hired, and that was Chuck Mills, the coach here at IUP. And Sam called me, and he said, Chuck, a guy by the name of Chuck Mills from Indiana State College got the job. And I go, whoopee. He said, why are you happy? I said, because it opened the job that I'd like to have, and I was going to go after the Indiana State College job. And the head coach at West Point offered me the coordinator's job to stay. But I wanted to leave, and I get an interview for noontime, we'll say, on a Monday morning. And I tell, the head coach, I'd like to leave and go over. He said, you have a meeting with your defensive staff at 3:30. If you can go over to Indiana and get back for 3:30, you can go. And I had a friend who was a Army pilot by the name of Tony Bellata. And Tony said, Chuck, we'll fly out of here at 6 in the morning. I'll put Army coveralls on you, and you have to learn to salute. And he said, but we'll go and get an Army plane, and we'll fly over to Stewart Field in Indiana, PA. And he flew me over, and they had somebody with a car took me in, and we had a noontime appointment for about an hour or so, and then I flew back so I could make practice that afternoon. So Tony Bellata, the pilot, was the guy that made it possible for me to come to Indiana.
Is that when you first met Dr. Pratt?
Yes.
Great. All right, well, let's get to talk a little bit about the 68th season before we move forward to the Boardwalk Bowl. Reflecting back on the 68th season, there are two teams that come to mind. Who would they be, Bob?
California and Clarion.
Yes. And it's the interaction of those two teams with IUP in 67 and 68 were really significant in how we got to be where we are as far as the opportunity to go to the Boardwalk Bowl. I'm going to give you a quick recap of our association with that, and also recap the two games in 68, then get your comments about those two games in 68. In 1967, Clarion came to Miller Stadium with a 15-game winning streak. They were 10-0 in 1966, and we were undefeated at the time. And we ended up beating them on our field 17-15 in 1967. And then we traveled to Cal later in that season and lost to Cal 27-20, which was our only loss in 1967. Now fast forwarding to 1968, the tables are turned. Now we have to travel to Clarion. We're undefeated, have aspirations for an undefeated season, and I'm sure they would like nothing more than to spoil that aspiration, and we have to travel to Clarion. California, who had beaten us on their field in '67, has to come to our stadium, and I think the next to the last game. I think we played Post the last game, and them the next to the last game. So obviously we had the same thought process to get by Clarion and then wait for Cal to come to us because we owed Cal from 1967. We sure didn't want them to spoil our opportunity for an undefeated season. So let me just give you a recap of the Clarion game quickly and then get your comments about that game. We led 3-0 at halftime in Clarion. We had two opportunities to score in the first half. There was a drop pass that took place that could have been a touchdown. And we ended up turning the ball over on downs at the 7-yard line in the first half. So we go in with a 3-0 lead at halftime. At the end of the third quarter, we still had 3 points. Clarion had 13 points. So going into the last 15 minutes of that game, we were down by 10 points. We scored with 10:30 in the third quarter of that game, and you elected to go for a 2-point conversion. So instead of the score being 13-10, it was 13-11 with 10 minutes to go in the game. Now what took place after that was a decision that Clarion probably would have liked to have changed. They were on our 43-yard line. We're down 13-11, and they have a 4th down and 1. And instead of punting, I guess they were looking to drive the knife in us at that point and move on and score and eat up a lot of time and make it a 2-score game. But they ended up throwing a pass that was incomplete. So we take over on the 43-yard line, and then we score. And at that point then it makes it 18-13 because we had 11 points. We got a touchdown, extra point, made it 18-13. And then they drive down to get to our 36-yard line with 5 minutes and 54 seconds left. Now our season's on the line there. I mean, with 5 minutes to go, they're on our 36-yard line, and we're only ahead by 2 points. Well, luckily Chuck Hassey, which we haven't talked about yet, but Chuck was a sophomore defensive back for us at that time, and he intercepted a ball on the 16-yard line. Clarion eventually got the ball back with a little over a minute to go, but the defense held them. During that game, we had 4 fumbles and 2 interceptions. Do you recall that game at all, Coach?
I guess I want to forget it. No, it's been a long time, and I've been through a lot of games. But that was a happy game.
Yes, that was a critical game.
Very good, Coach.
Coach Krzyzewski, any comments about that game?
Yeah, I recall the game. And I'm going to tell you something. It was a game we never gave up hope on. We had the faith that we were going to do it. This was going to be a matter of when. And we knew if we put our defense in there at the end, we'd come out all right. And that's the way it ended. Our defense was in there at the end. They got the last shot, and we got the win.
Jerry, that's not the game. We didn't take a safety in that game, did we?
No.
No.
That was the other games.
That was
One
the
of
other game,
Clarion
yeah.
game we
One of
had.
the other
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Well, the other game is we get past Clarion, and of course Cal's coming to town, and they're coming to town with some thoroughbreds on paper, and we're talking about quarterback Petruzzi. He was the 3rd leading passer in the NAIA, and in total offense, California was 10th in the nation in NAIA. they threw well against us down at Cal, and they had a big name receiver that's coming in. So obviously we had great expectations for that game, and realizing that they stood in the way of our undefeated season. Let me just give you a couple stats from that game and get your comments from it. We beat Cal 41-0 up here. With those type of thoroughbred players coming in to our field. We held Cal to 9 first downs. Net rushing yards was 31 yards. Petruzzi was 12 for 24 with 127 yards. They had a total offense of 158 yards. Only 4 times they crossed the 50-yard line during that game. It was 13-0 at half. And during that game, there was a ton of contributions by offensive and defensive people. Charlie Hassey, who we mentioned recently, had a punt return for a touchdown. Don Rinshoots had a touchdown. Priest and myself had an interception. Bobby Tate had 2 field goals. Dave Smith had 2 touchdowns, 2 long passes called back. One was a touchdown and one was a long pass, both because of penalties. They threw it to him a 3rd time, didn't have a penalty, he caught it. So what do you remember about that game, Coach?
What I remember is that Dave Smith had a great game. Mm-hmm. We just threw the ball to him every chance we got.
I think he had 15 receptions, I think.
That's right. Well, now I do remember.
Yes, you do.
And I think he showed his great skill there. Mm-hmm. You know, Dave had an interesting pro career. You know, we've had very few of our graduates at that time, make it to the NFL. And I think Dave opened the door to a lot of people, in showing the skill that he had. And he was a great athlete, a very gifted athlete.
Jerry, I want to comment on that game because I want to congratulate and commend Coach Ruseski, Coach Doherty, and so on. And this is the California game. With all, we were pumped for the California game. The coaches did a significant analysis. Coach Ruseski, Coach Doherty, watching the game films, the California game films, saw that Petruzzi, if he was going to be running, say, out to the right, he would keep his left foot back. If he was going to be going out to the left, he'd put his right foot back. And we studied those films, coaches studied those films, and we, upon whatever the stance was by Petruzzi, if he took that one stance, the left linebacker went. If he took another stance, the right linebacker went. If he did something else, we'd have the middle guard do something. But from that, it was just the whole game, and the coaches did an outstanding job in doing that prep up for us.
Coach Ruseski, do you have any comments about that?
Yeah,
It had to be a very satisfying
I
defensive
want to make
win.
a couple of comments about that game. First of all, as most of the guys here know, and the coaches know, California does a tremendous job in their football program. They do a tremendous job in recruiting transfer students.
Oh, yeah.
And these boys from the valley who parents work in the coal mines and the steel mills down there are tough cookies. They go away to these major schools, but when something doesn't go right or they want to come home to take care of the family or something, California goes out and recruits them. And they always had a very strong football program, good players, and they were class football players. We got beat the year before down there. We were coming up against basically the same players. So Doc and myself and watching the films, and one reason we watched the films at night is because of this guy right here. We had to be in the office. I didn't care if we were sleeping, but we had to be there, okay? We'd watch these films. And we knew to get the jump on this team, we had to find something that they were doing. And the team was a good team. Petruzzi was a tremendous quarterback, and we start looking for a little advantage. And we found the advantage. We thought we found the advantage, and we watched the way he lined up every time. And it was a little different with leg balance or leg alignment. So all week, we worked with the defense, that when that right leg was at a certain place, we went right. When that left leg was a certain place, we went left. And we had about 3 or 4 calls. And every time that leg was there, our guys called it out. Everybody knew, everybody went. And of course, it held up. And what surprised us is they never changed in the second quarter because they couldn't pick up what the heck we were doing. But that was the key to that whole game. Had we gone in there and tried to play them evenly with the horses that they had and with the horses that we had, their horses were much bigger horses. Their horses were well trained. It would have been a tremendous game. Otherwise, we would not have had that blowout that we had because of this little flaw we picked up at quarterback.
Yeah, I can recall there was a lot of times that people were in the backfield disrupting
Right.
Petrucci during that game, and that certainly took him off his game. And we're late in the season now, and we're undefeated. After Cal, we had 1 game left with CW Post. At that point in the season, Coach, can you recall what you were thinking about in relation to postseason play, opportunities for this team for postseason play, realizing that we're in the NAIA, and they have had a mini playoff system at that time. I understand four teams went into a national championship game, a semifinals played, I think they said the week after Thanksgiving, and the finals being played on the same day that the Boardwalk Bowl was being played on the 14th. But at that point in the season, between the NAIA and the possibility of, when did you realize that we had the possibility of both the NCAA and the NAIA?
We had a team meeting, and I presented to the team, if the NCAA could possibly invite us, the NAIA would definitely invite us. And the team said, they voted almost perfect, we don't want to go to the NAIA playoff. And then we worked, to help get us into the NCAA playoff. The team wanted the NCAA playoff. They didn't want any part of the NAIA.
Well, at the time, we were ranked 2nd in the NAIA in national polls, and the NCAA had us ranked 5th on the national polls. So is it true to say that if the NAIA offered us first, so we had to turn them down, and we put stock on the fact that if we didn't, after turning them down, if we didn't get the NCAA bid, then we had no
were out,
options. We were out of options.
And we were kicked out of the
NAIA.
NAIA. So,
So that was tough on other sports.
but it was a team decision, and
Part of the team decision was, we
I'm
knew that
glad.
Coach Klausing, if we stated we wanted the NCAA, he would
He'd
get us
find a
there.
way.
He would find a way to get us there.
Coach, I want to get back to a question about your coaching staff. Fred Chase came on board in 1968, and I know he really blended in well with the coaching staff, and I know he was greatly acclimated to the players, and the players really respect him and really played hard and knew his experiences of playing at Purdue and so forth. Could you give us a little background between you and Coach Ruseski about some of Fred's background? And in case people don't know it, unfortunately we found out that last year on September 1st, Fred passed away in a drowning accident. So we're going to miss the opportunity to see him again, and wish to extend our best wishes to his family. So Coach Ruseski or Coach Klausing, could you give us a little background on Fred and his association with the IUP team in '68?
Well, when I first heard about Fred, it was sort of a negative thing. He had had a fight with Dave Smith, and he did more than held his own, and so I was concerned about that. But then I heard about his football background, which was very excellent, and I talked with him, and he was happy to come on the staff and did a great job for us on the staff, and I've followed him even ever since. He's coached down in high schools in Florida, and in fact, I recruited at his high school and got two great players to play at Carnegie Mellon from his high school. So I've had a great experience with Fred, and I'm so sorry to hear, about his loss. And but he was a great addition and a great value to our staff.
Coach Krzyzewski, you have some comments about Fred?
Yeah. Fred, if anybody you could call a friend, Fred was a friend. Fred would back you up no matter what, even if it took a good fist fight. He was there. He would back you up. If you needed somebody to help you, he would help you. That boy never let you down. He came out of Duquesne, Pennsylvania. And as a youth, he struggled. He got an opportunity through football to go to Purdue. He played linebacker at Purdue. He was a pretty good football player. He moved back to this area to go to graduate school. And this is when Chuck picked him up. And Fred and myself have been friends for life since I first knew him. We've had a lot of times where we got together, but Fred respected people. He respected their rights. And one thing about him, Fred always had a positive attitude. I don't care what happened. It was for the best of things. And that's what got Fred through life. And I think this is in his final journey of helping somebody. From what I understand, it was a person drowning down around the Naval Academy. And Fred went in the water to save him, and Fred drowned. For however it happened, I don't know what the final results were. But again, Fred stepped up and did what he always did. He supported his friends.
Well, Fred was back for our 40th Boardwalk Bowl reunion, and we got a chance to see Fred. Have not seen him for a number of years, and his significant other, Emily, and we at least had an opportunity to see him rather recently. So, and we all have good memories of Fred.
Right, very much so.
I have good friends of Fred, good memories of Fred. When I think of Fred, you know what I think about? A weightlifter, because he always had a cut-off T-shirt, okay? And always had Emily with them. And they both looked like they walked off the beach yesterday.
Do you remember Dave or Fred swim?
Fred was a little, he was a little muscle-bound in his lifestyle. Fred was, he liked to keep himself in real good shape, which he did. And I don't think he didn't have the slender swimming muscles I think that most people have. I think he had more of those weightlifting muscles, like a rock. You follow me?
Yeah.
I think that could have been half of the problem.
So staying with you, Coach Krzyzewski, and getting closer to the Boardwalk Bowl game, do you recall how you, Doc, and Fred established a defensive game plan for the Boardwalk Bowl?
Sure. Very simple. Chuck Clausing said, I don't care what you do. I think we had 2 weeks, didn't we, Chuck?
Yeah,
You have 2 weeks. He said, you guys get in that room at night. He said, you guys look at those films. And he said, you come up with a plan. Now, back in those days, we didn't have computers. We couldn't put all this stuff on a computer. We had, even if we could have bought a computer, we couldn't afford one here at the university. But everything we did on paper. We took, I think, 6 games or more and broke them down by play. We knew exactly we had a tendency on first down what they would do, who would carry the ball, second down, third down, when they were going to pass it, which way they were going to go. We had so many numbers that I think we were confusing ourselves. But we did come up with a plan. And it was a plan which was based on their tendencies. And they had a tendency to go, I believe it was left most of the time. And when they had the tendency to go left, we wanted to make sure that we were loaded defensively on that side. because most of their plays and most of their running and most of the their offensive game plan went to, I believe it was our right and their left. And that's how we developed this plan, and we had a scheme for every play. And it was a guessing game then after a while. We were guessing that on first down, 88% of the time they were going to do this. But the last 3 times they did this, so maybe they're going to switch this time, so we're going to do a little switching too. But this is the way we worked that game plan. That's how we come up with it.
Well, following along with the game plan theme, again, a question to you is personnel during that game. We were limited to taking 38 people to the Boardwalk Bowl. And as you have said numerous times in our conversations, we were successful during the season because we utilized a lot of personnel, and we had got some experience built up with other personnel. I understand Jack Yanni had back spasms that day, and he was supposed to be rotating in, I assume a defensive tackle. And I think we had Dotson, Neptune, and Heimlich at end, which you can rotate those 3 guys in. We had Tate, Nixon, and Olson at linebacker. But when Gutschall went down, there was really nobody to rotate in other than a replacement with defensive backs. Can you give us some of your thoughts on how you were utilizing personnel during that game?
Well, we went into that game we had to take 38 players. That was the first problem we ran into. It wasn't a problem, but it kind of limited us because most of you guys who were with us know all year we substituted freely. We wanted to make sure if we took you to the game, we didn't take you there to sit on the bench. We wanted to play you and see what you could do. Well, when we went down to the Boardwalk Bowl game with 38 players, and we had all of our tendencies and everything figured out on our game plan, when Stanley Gutschall went down, it created a little bit of a problem for us. Okay? We knew what way they were, their tendency was to run their offense. Okay? We were down with Gutschall, and we were banking on the fact that they would stick to their tendencies. And to tell you the truth, the majority of the game they did, where they beat us, is at the end of that game when they do that crossing pattern,
Right.
and we had a little problem there that I don't intend to discuss at all because anything can happen in the game, fellas. That's why we're there. But our tendencies and our player personnel were all predicated upon what we viewed in the games that we studied. I believe it was 6 that we studied. And that was the most film we were allowed to have, and we were allowed to request the game film, were we not, Chuck?
Yes.
We requested the game film from the 6 games that we wanted to see. And that's what dictated the personnel, that's what dictated the defensive alignments and how we got in the game.
I have a question. Who was our punter?
Bayshore.
Bob
Bobby
Bayshore.
Bayshore.
Bobby Bayshore.
Okay.
Who was our place kicker and who was our extra point man? Look at him over there. He looks as good today as he
I
did
was much
then.
taller back then.
Hi, Bobby. I don't kid you.
Very good.
Well, speaking about defensive alignments and success defensively on that game, one of the things that stood out was our punt return team and the abilities to go after the punter for Delaware. Now, we have a clip we wanted to show of 2 block punts that occurred during that game, and we'd ask both of you to take a look at that to maybe give some comments as to how we were able to get in there so successfully twice, not just once, but twice on a punt return.
Should have been 3 times.
Should have been 3 times.
To put the rush on. Pass from center is a good one. Kick is blocked. Blocked by Olson. Blocked by Olson into the corner by Indiana at the 31-yard line.
Now, are we sure that Olson blocked?
Indiana
Yes,
sends
yes.
one man back. Barry Ruffner. Emmons the kick standing at the 33. Indiana blocked 1 kick, and they'd love to get another one. Ted Olson looking to charge. He was the one that did it the first time.
It's a little hard to see.
There's the pass from center. Kicking quickly. Blocked. Blocked by Ted Olson again. Rolling. And it's going to be Indiana's goal at the 26-yard line. Ted Olson did it again. Indiana University.
Okay, Coach, why were we able to block 2 punts?
We were able to block 2 punts, first of all, because we had a football player who was extremely quick.
Teddy Olson.
Teddy Olson. Ted was very quick in the initial reaction. The second thing is, when studying films again, we saw the way the guy blocked and where he turned his head. You remember that, Bob?
Yes, we definitely had a block. I mean,
We
an attack,
remember we
block
blocked.
punt.
We
Right.
had a block.
We were blocking on both sides.
We blocked we blocked the guy who looked the wrong way all the time, and kicked the other guy in, and it also went right up through the middle, and that's how it worked. But the key to the whole thing was his quickness. We can come up with ideas, but we had to have players who could execute them. I'll tell you that right now, and we did.
And then the same thing with the punts. We had 2 punts, but then we also had 2 run backs,
Right.
where you and Chad, I mean, had a real significant run back each.
Yeah, special teams played a big part of that
Right.
game, to say the least. Coach Clausing, in conjunction, on November 23rd, we got the bid for the Boardwalk Bowl. December 14th was the game. In that short period of time, what was your concerns, or what was your approach to getting us ready for that game?
Well, we were 35 days away when our season was over, and we tried to practice, and it was too cold. You couldn't
I do recall that,
go
yes.
out there. So when we finally knew who we were playing, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there was 2 weeks between Delaware's last game and the game. And that was ideal for them. And we still tried to practice, and I'd say to the other coaches, we're punishing our team. It was too cold to practice. We didn't have an indoor facility. They had an indoor facility that they could practice on. So we'd go out for 15 minutes. It was too cold. We'd have to go back in. And finally, we made preparation to go to the game. And we went a couple days early, and we practiced in pads 2 days before the game. And I remember we're out in the field scrimmaging, and Tubby Raymond comes in, and he comes over and shakes hands with me, and he says, "Chuck, what are you doing?" I said, "We're having our first practice." And he had 2 weeks of practice in their indoor facility. So there were so many negatives that were hard to overcome that they had advantages.
Sure.
And wouldn't it be great today with the basketball arena we have here if they could take that down and practice inside? You know, I hope they could. But the preparation, you know, was an advantage for them.
For sure. Well, let me touch a little bit on the broadcasting of the game. The names I recall seeing associated with that game are icons in the game, and I wonder whether you had a chance to meet any of them in the course of the Boardwalk Bowl. I understand Bud Wilkinson previewed the IUP team. At some point, Frank Gifford of Wide World of Sports Radio interviewed you. Do you recall meeting any of those 2 gentlemen in the course of the leading up to the Boardwalk Bowl, since they were associated with it?
I had met Wilkinson at other times, but I don't recall talking to him before the
Him being on site at
Boardwalk
all,
Bowl. The big thing that happened, the man in charge of facilities at the Atlantic City
Convention Center.
Convention Center.
was from Braddock,
Been
Pennsylvania.
our small world.
And he gave us the better locker room, the better side of the field, and, you know, little things like that that helped along the way. But The big names I never saw, to my knowledge.
Well, I understand someone had to call up to the ABC studios to Ruin Artledge's office, and talking to his secretary was from Pittsburgh, and attended IUP.
Yes.
So another
Right.
small world story when it comes to that game. And last thing before we talk about the game, I understand you have a story to tell us about the player introductions at the beginning of the game.
Oh, they wanted to have introductions real short, but they were going to name the names of the players, and I didn't plan this, but they started to name our players, and when they said Dick Dragonek, wide receiver, he ran out in the middle of the field, turned around, and he waved to everybody. So they were stuck. They had to introduce the other players the same way. And it was Dragonek's
Initiative, huh?
that made it possible for us to be
Blind initiative, as it may
Number
be.
10, Dick Dragonek.
Great. All right. Well, now we're at the Boardwalk Bowl, and we certainly are interested in seeing some clips and getting some comments from both of you in that regard. Basically, the first quarter, Delaware received the kickoff, and they scored on a play-action pass, which was unusual for them, and we were down 7-0 at half. Offensively, we started slow. We had 3 possessions and a fumble associated with that first possession. Do you recall our slow start offensively? We were down 7-0 at half. We had 3 3-and-outs.
Well, I like to read what we did in the second quarter. In that Dave Smith caught a
we have a videotape
62-yard
for the first
touchdown
quarter.
pass, and Danny Cox ran for 24, and Tom McCracken ran for 18. And I think the oxygen was helping us. All of our players were going over using the oxygen canisters, so we were in good shape for the first and second quarter.
We have some clips of the first and second quarter we want to have you watch, and then perhaps Coach Ruseski and Coach Clausen, you can make a comment here. This would be the Delaware pass, yeah.
Pass away. Kelly in the end zone. Touchdown, Delaware.
Now, this is the offense, the fact that there was 3 and out.
Lucas. And the corner and hit. Oh, hit by a jarring tackle at the 47-yard line.
Still the first quarter.
Yep. This is an incomplete pass to Dave Smith. Overthrew him.
This is a long pass.
That's the first quarter.
It's first quarter. This is another attempt. The camera went askew here, but see, it was an overthrow. It was like our offensive game just wasn't together in the first quarter.
Play short kicking for Indiana on 4th and 8. Spiral Booth. George drops at the 22 and is down by the Indians. The 22 or 3 yards.
Wasn't it a lot of fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Now, from a defense, at first quarter we did have some great defensive
First
plays.
down for the Blueheads.
You see Neptune.
Joe Heimlich.
Yeah, that was Duke.
Pastine recovered.
Now here's Neptune.
Here's the all hit.
Sack.
Nailed at the 17-yard line. A loss of 7. Neptune made the stop.
Now this was a question Did you see something in this first quarter punt that said, boy, they're vulnerable? It sounded like though you already knew that before the
We
game.
knew that before the game.
Evans to kick and the double safety.
Because we had 3 guys back there that had a shot at blocking that punt, but they
I
weren't
said
trying
we
to.
should have had a third one.
Yeah,
That
right,
was the one we
right.
should have had. You follow me?
Number 17, Hassig.
But we got that, where we picked this up, is somebody else, a couple of games before we got the game films, blocked one on them.
Oh,
And
okay.
we watched how they blocked it, and then we went to their other punts in their other 6 games, and what we saw, they were doing the same thing. The players that they had in there were making the same moves. That's how we timed that off.
They just didn't take advantage of it.
And we were fortunate we had the personnel who did what we asked them to do, and had the ability to do it.
So the second quarter clips we're going to show now also.
May as well, yeah. Now, we don't have video for first 2 touchdowns.
Smith is loose at the 35. He cuts the left at the 25, 20, 50, 10, 5. Indiana touchdown. Back to throw. The draw to McCracken. He has a hole. He across the 30, 25, 20, 50, 10, 5. Knocked out at the 2. They're in tight. The Delaware defense is tight. I formation. Lucas gives to Cox deep into the... No, he keeps the ball and he rolls. He's at the 5. He cuts. He's in for the score.
Great
The
block.
middle, Fox past the 20 to the 16-yard line. Boy, what a hard driver he is. Fox again. Fox to the 10. 5. Look at him go for that goal line. Fox again, fighting for the goal line. Fades short. Second and goal on the half-yard line. Quarterback sneak with Wally Lucas.
I'm looking forward to seeing this, you know, because I really haven't been able to, you know.
The DVD that Bob put together?
My machine isn't working too good, I guess.
Oh, we're going to have to get you a machine, Coach. You got to watch this game. It brings
Good memory.
chills back to you, I tell you, it does.
I agree.
The second quarter was a great quarter.
Yes, it was.
What took place between the first quarter and the second quarter? Offensively, we were jammed up and just could not go anywhere. And all of a sudden, we loosened it up. I mean, Smith had a long pass. We had success going between the tackles. Was it the play calling? Was it just?
No, it was our personnel doing the job.
Okay.
There you go.
Very good. I mean, that got us back in the game and really lifted everybody's spirits. I mean, we just knew we could play with them.
Coach,
between-
I have a question. You used Pujo and Dale Hall at right guard, and you alternated them a lot.
Dale and who else?
Dale Hall and Gene Pulowski.
Pujo.
Okay.
Did you use them to send plays in?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. I didn't know how much Wally Blucas was calling the game on his own.
No,
You were sending plays in with the guards?
we would,
Okay.
I think ever since I was a high school coach.
Okay.
And
Just doesn't trust anybody with his wallet.
yeah, Coach, was Mickey Watson up in the booth spotting for you too? Because he stated that he had given you some guidance on a power play pass where Delaware was coming up to stop Dave Smith, and then Dave went off to the right side and he was open for a long gain or whatever. So
We always tried to establish an off-tackle play.
right.
And then we would fake the off-tackle play and throw a pass off
Right.
of the off-tackle play. And I talked to our tight end the last couple weeks ago.
George Stark.
Pardon?
George Stark.
George, yeah. George lived in Eastwood, Keysport, and I lived down over the hill in Wilmerding. And when I heard George was unhappy at Pitt, and I walked up the hill to recruit him and to come to IUP. and he was a good one. You know,
Yeah, he was a good one,
so there were so many. You know, every one of these players. You had another friend from Williamsport that came with you.
I did. Rick Dahlgren, who he decided to play baseball, and he gave up football.
He played as a freshman.
But I remember two of you coming
Yep.
in recruiting. I remember Bill Spadafor telling me about Bobby Tate, and we had John Tate here,
Right.
and so you know, the recruiting was so different, you know, at that time. It was contacts, and that's how you got good people to come.
Okay, Coach, we're going into halftime, 21-10. What do you tell a team that's up 21-10 and it seemed to score at will in the second quarter at halftime? You can recall any of the halftime environment?
Boy, I recall the halftime very, very much. We go in and sit down, and everybody's dying. And where's the oxygen? And somebody said, the oxygen is run out. And, you know, it's always good to have a gopher like Ernie Vida. And Ernie had all the guts in the world. He calls the Atlantic City Hospital and said, we have a tragedy happening in the locker room here at Convention Hall. There's some players that are dying, and they're in need of oxygen. And all of a sudden we hear a siren. A ambulance is coming down the boardwalk, comes running into our locker room, and where's the people dying? And they're carrying oxygen, and the kids are grabbing the oxygen and starting to
I
use
remember
it.
that.
So that's what I remember most about that game. And there's a lot of things, you know, about Ernie that weren't necessarily the best, but he was a gopher, he was a doer, and if he was your friend, you had a great friend.
Well, coming out after on the field on the third quarter, certainly we're up 21-10, and Delaware has to be concerned. I think they thought that they would be down at halftime. Going into the third quarter, they certainly came out with a purpose, and they ended up scoring 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, and they went for a 2-point conversion that failed. So going into the fourth quarter, then the score was Delaware 23, IUP 21. We have some clips, even though they're mostly of Delaware's success of the third quarter, and perhaps get some of your comments in that regard.
Yeah, we had 3 and outs. We had a punt partially blocked. We had a fumble, and we had a big penalty that set us back.
Safety man. That's Kelly.
To me,
This is their
Crushed.
Sure, yeah.
the blocking of the 2 punts were the greatest plays that we could have.
Kicking Bayshore, number 20.
This is Bayshore's partially
Yeah,
blocked
the
punt.
right
partially
with
blocked.
extra people.
Almost blocked, partially blocked.
That was a partially.
That was Delaware
Right.
on the right.
Yep. And now they take it right in.
43-yard line of Indiana.
It's a pass play that caught it in the seam, and
Right.
Delaware, 43-yard play. Demusio to Woodfelder.
if I recall, that was the first 2 possessions, I think, of the third quarter.
Lucas
There's the fumble.
hit, fumble. Delaware has it. Second down 8 at the 26. Demusio running.
The fumble
No,
right back.
they fumbled it back, thank goodness.
Indiana has it at the 28-yard line. That's Mike Priest on the football for the Big Indians.
I have one big question. Why is this game
Buckley has it at the 40.
so important?
Ooh, he's up there.
that everyone feels that it was the crowning thing in IUP football. I mean, that's the impression I get, you know, and I think we were such underdogs, and be able to overcome, our coaching staff at Indiana at the time was Owen Doherty and I. You know, we're the only two
Full-time coaches?
full-timers, you know.
Oh, really?
We were fortunate to have great part-timers that were able to help us. Now, Delaware had 6
Full-time coaches.
full-time assistants. And their head coach was nationally rated. He was really a great coach. And for us to be so close to winning, I think it made people respect us. And I think I've been involved in a lot of great games. I'm very proud of my record as a high school coach at Braddock, Pennsylvania. And there's a movie coming out on just the 6 years of Braddock. And I think, though, this movie has greater potential, because it was the underdog. We weren't supposed to be able to play with them.
Well, there was 121 teams in the eastern seaboard of the NCAA that had the opportunity to go to this game. And so to get Delaware was played in a more elevated schedule, and I think they were invited the first 4 years of the Boardwalk Bowl, from 68 through 71 or 72.
Yeah.
And they handily beat other teams in those 4 years. We were the closest game associated with them, and on paper we'd be considered a tier below them as far as the level of competition that we played. So I think it's amazing that with the coaching and the coaching staff, and with the players and what we did, that somehow somebody saw through that out of 121 teams, the best matchup was Delaware against IUP. And certainly the Delaware people didn't feel that way when they got chosen. They thought they deserved a better opponent for that particular inaugural game. Realize that was the first indoor NCAA championship game in NCAA history. That was the first indoor national championship game, any type of championship game that was ever played. So it's kind of has some significance as far as football history goes and so forth. But
I think too, Coach, as far as stating why is this game always kept so high, there was a love among all of us on our team, defense, offense, playing with Coach Ruseski, Coach Doherty, yourself, Coach McDonald. I mean, there was just a real bondage between players and coaches. And then when we go play at the Boardwalk Bowl, again, we're the underdogs. Cartwright writes that article, the cakewalk, and so on. And Delaware thinks they're going to knock us off like nothing. And then after the fact, you start looking at all these articles. They're stating this was the best game of the season. Tubby Raymond stating this is he had to sit down. He said, I don't ever want to have to go through this again, blah, 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 stating that this was simply one fantastic game. So we have that. We have the university falling in behind us. All of our players mostly are within, say, a 100-mile radius of Indiana, so everybody's local.
Western Pennsylvania.
All Western Pennsylvania people. And as we move on from this game, we maintain our friendship, we maintain our care for each other, so that all helps keep everything going. And it was one great experience, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure among all of us to be coached by you two and the remainder of the staff and our friendship.
Well, and it extends to players too, because Jack Henry, who is a captain and coached in the NFL, Dave Smith, who played in the NFL, when you ask them what one of their best sports memories are, they don't mention an NFL experience. They mention an experience while playing in the Boardwalk Bowl because of what went up to that point and how we performed and what we almost accomplished.
But this was, excuse me, John, wait a minute. This was the crowning point of what the university or certain members of the university community wanted to have happen. They wanted IUP to be elevated a higher step than the state system of higher education, because they felt it would not only help our sports program, but it would also be very positive for our academic program. And we went into that game, everybody had their doubts. You were either going to fulfill the desire of a lot of people to achieve that success, or you were going to turn around and fall off like an old pumpkin. And what the players did, they had the initiative, they had the drive, and with the direction that you gave them, they elevated the university. This is why our program today, that's what built the programs we've had and the success that the football program has had over the years is from that Boardwalk Bowl game. And what has kept it really in the limelight is the fact that all the people associated with it cannot forget about it, okay? They can't forget the players. The players can't forget it because there was such a uniting of the university and the community. The community was back of this team. I think of members of the community who followed this team every game, every place that we went, whether we went to play C.W. Post or whether we went to play California or went to play Clarion, they were there. I remember Saul Waxer. I remember he was on the faculty. Remember Dick Wolf and his wife, and they all followed us. There were many other people that I can't recall their names now because of my age, but they were with us every game.
And part of the thing, when we were going through all the films, trying to find the other films, the other two quarters, you would show the bleachers, they were packed. Our games were always sold out.
Right.
We always had.
Yeah, it's amazing to me when you read some of the news articles. The Kell game at home, 12,000 people.
Right.
At Miller, 12,000 people at Miller Stadium. That's jam at Miller Stadium.
But you know why, folks?
10, 11,000 people at our home games.
You guys made it exciting. You guys did things. We didn't sit there with 5 big linemen and 3 big linebackers and let them run at us. We always did what? We went after
We
them.
attacked them, right.
We took it to them. And people liked that type of a game. They liked that activity. They like to see people going at people.
Well, when there's 12,000 people at a Cal game and there's only 5,000 students on campus, we got a lot of community support during that period of time.
No, we did.
Prior to that game, for 50 years before, everybody that went to Indiana Normal School, Indiana State Teachers College, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, lived within a 25-mile radius of Indiana. If you lived 30 miles away,
Nobody ever heard
you
of
were
us.
closer to Slippery Rock, or you were closer to Shippensburg.
Sure.
And that opened up us to be a national university.
This is what the philosophy had been. We needed to get national recognition. This game, through athletics, gave us national recognition. It has stuck with us, and the individuals who were involved with it, for one reason or another, have stuck with us.
There's a bond.
And this is why I say how fortunate we are.
That's right. The band of brothers.
That's a good way of putting it, Bobby. That's a
You know,
good way
we
of
had,
putting
we started to get some people from out of the area. And there was, like, Mike Priest was from California. And we had a lineman that I was able to get from West Point. I called him Chubby Checkman.
Crazy
Okay.
Chuck.
Remember that big guy.
Checkmate.
Remember
Crazy
that guy.
Chuckman.
And
His arms and legs went different ways when he ran.
and he came in, you know, and then we
Chuck, he ended up here because he got in the wrong train. I'll tell you one thing right now.
but it was amazing how
It
the
opened it up.
Boardwalk Bowl
Opened it up.
opened up
Right.
doors.
Right.
Yeah. Well, now we're down to the fourth quarter. We're going into the fourth quarter down 23-21. And there's kind of four major impact plays that took place that we have on a clip we want to show. We were fourth and one. I guess we're going to show the clip now. Okay, great. Go ahead.
Where is it?
Still driving, and look at that Delaware team gang up on him and finally drive him to the ground. Smith, a very hard man to bring down, and Delaware's
There it is,
aware of
yeah.
that.
Can you run that back? There we go.
Lucas to Smith.
Now this one, Smith had a first down, but then he would drop back a couple of yards and lost it.
Right.
Then it gave us a fourth down, and Wally tried another pass to Smith and it went incomplete. We turned it over on downs.
Delaware's aware of that. Ball at the 43-yard line of Delaware. Fourth down one. What do you do right now if you're the Indiana quarterback? Passing on fourth and one.
Faked out the cameraman.
This is the second block punt.
Buckner is deep.
See where we always kept the block? I was punt that done, guys.
Ball rolling at the 25-yard line and
We've seen those heads before.
Indiana's ball at the Delaware 25-yard line.
This was a great catch by
Third and
George.
17.
Yards to go. Big play right here. Lucas in the pocket. He hits Stark. Stark at the 15-yard line.
Coach, this is where you had the fourth and a half a yard with a minute to go. And we kicked the field goal.
And half a yard to go.
Yeah, I did some thinking, and I
Longest this year.
have always been very confident when it's fourth and one and I can make 1 yard. And I had a favorite play, 132 keep pass, and I thought of you calling that play, and George Stark was a great receiver. He had great hands, and Wally was great at faking the 132 play, and I was tempted to go. And the interesting thing, I'm glad that we kicked, and but the next year, I think we're playing Slippery Rock, and we come up to the same situation. Fourth and one, 25, 30-yard line, and that was the only game we lost that year, was Slippery Rock.
Right.
And we could kick a field goal. And I said, we're going to fake that thing and keep that ball. And sure enough, we failed. And and we could have failed, in the Boardwalk Bowl.
Yeah. A minute to go, 33 yards away. So yeah, you got to kick.
Yeah, you got to rely on your defense,
gotta
and
do it.
and unfortunately things didn't play out as we had anticipated. So they marched down the field in 3 plays. I think they had three pass plays, and the individual that caught the ball on the 11-yard line, Sam Brickley, he's the one who gave us some of the video that we had missing from the Boardwalk Bowl. And I spoke to Sam at quite a length about the game and so forth. That was only his 6th catch of the season. They didn't throw that much, especially to him. He played the slot, and he says he was used a lot of times as a decoy on passing plays, but he was not the primary receiver. He said on that play, he was supposed to clear out, and they were going to curl inside to get the first down and try to get closer for a field goal attempt. But he said all of a sudden he sees DiMuggio, the quarterback, go off of him and throw him deep, and he says he could see in his peripheral vision 2 defenders, and he thought, this isn't going to be good. And we just got there a half a second late. He caught it and put it on the 11-yard line. And what also is interesting about that next sequence, that they went, I think it was like 1 minute and 15 seconds left. They ran a running play and gained 2 yards. What I didn't realize till listening to Ray Goss's replay of the last 6 minutes, because it's not on the TV broadcast, is that after that first down and they gained 2 yards, Delaware called a timeout. And prior to having the timeout, they sent their field goal team on. I don't know if you remember that or not. So they were with a minute and about 1 minute and 10 seconds left, 1:05 seconds left. They were going to kick a field goal. It was like 2nd and 8 for a first down, and it was less than a minute to go. I don't know how many timeouts they had left, but probably not many. And during the timeout, they took the field goal team out and brought the regular offense back on.
Yeah.
And they ran a play that they were successful on twice before, and perhaps that's what they thought about, because on both on the 2-point conversions earlier in the third quarter, when the slot man and the wideout crossed, the wideout was wide open, but he dropped the ball. So my guess is that they did not want to take a chance. We already blocked 2 punts. They probably were concerned about us getting through again and maybe blocking the field goal. They were wide open on that crossing pattern, and they had a little different alignment up front, but they ran the same pattern with a crossing pattern, and again the guy was open, and then on the 2-point conversion they did the same play. They ran that crossing pattern with an inside guy and an outside guy, and they got the 2-point conversion. So obviously they saw something in our coverage that exposed that outside guy to be open. So we're down. It's a minute to go in the game. We have to kick off. We only have 38 players. I don't know, was there any discussion about doing something different with the kickoff?
Well, I thought of onside kick, but I thought it was, not a smart thing to do. If I had to do over again, maybe it would have been. But Bob gave us a good kickoff, but our coverage was not good.
Right.
Yeah, the right side, we collapsed on that, and they got back, to our 43-yard line, which really was a major impact on what they were able to do.
I think just too, we were getting burned out, and our coverage wasn't as quick as what it should have been. So,
well, we have one more tape, a clip of the was it two-point conversions?
The 2-point conversion attempts.
And you can see the crossing pattern as to how that guy got open.
Attempted 2-point conversion in the end zone and dropped by 81 Whitfelder. Niozio's pass was on target, a bullseye, but Whitfelder dropped it.
we had a blitz
the
on.
wingman.
We had a blitz on.
2 points, he caught it, Whitfelder.
And even though we don't have the touchdown, that's essentially the same type of play they ran for the touchdown, too.
Is that the end zone that was small?
No, that was the end zone to the lobby, I think, wasn't it?
There was one end zone that was only 6
Right.
yards.
8 yards. I think 8
8
yards.
yards.
8 yards.
8 yards.
Yeah, well, that was where the stands were at, and I think this was the open end.
Okay.
The open end stadium. Okay, that's all the game film we have, and as far as any comments you guys have reflecting back on the game in a general sense. I know you commented on it quite a bit in the course of the game here, but since the game, have either one of you had a chance to run across the Delaware coach, Tubby Raymond, or anybody else that you may have discussed the game with after the fact?
I've been at clinics with Tubby, and we've talked at times. But I had an interesting visit. I went to Delaware State, a black school.
Coach Jeter.
And the coaching staff was all players from Delaware who had played in
IUP.
the game.
Really?
And I come in and try to introduce myself, and they said, "Coach, we know you. You don't have to introduce yourself." And he said, "I just want to tell you that the Cakewalk Bowl your ass." He said it was the toughest game we ever played in. And, you know, they were very respectful. And our team earned that respect.
Coach, being that we lost the game, how did that impact on your career for possible head coaching jobs elsewhere?
Well, you know, if we would have won the game, there would have been job opportunities for me that I would have been very interested in, and it could have changed, you know, my career. Yet I'm glad that I had the career that I had. You know, there's things, if you had to do it over, you'd do it a little different. But no, I'd still do it all the same.
Good.
Well, Bob, why don't you ask Coach Clausing that last question that you've always wanted to
Oh,
know?
yeah. Coach, every game at halftime, you used to come in and you walk up to that chalkboard and you put that 0 to 0 up there, no matter what the score was. And then you had several points that you wanted us to remember when we went back out on the field. So can you go through those one more time
And
for
I
us?
think you said if we do these things, we will win.
Okay, I think that there were 6.
Okay, we weren't quite sure of the number.
And I'd say, look, we can't let them have a long run.
No long run.
No long run. No long passes completed against us. No kicks blocked. No fumbles. No interceptions. No penalties. And if you keep those 6 things to a minimum, you're going to win the game.
There you go.
And that's been my coaching philosophy all my life.
Well, we tried.
Chuck, that's a heck of a philosophy, but I'll tell you one thing, that other team had some different ideas every once in a while, you know what I mean? And after we used that so often, it got a little stale, you know, that's what Bobby's trying to say.
Well, Bob, why don't you explain Coach Rosesky's philosophy when you're asking him different points
Yeah,
on defensive techniques?
I tell you, Coach Rosesky has demonstrated he's very articulate, very knowledgeable relative to the school, and there was a lot of analysis that was done whenever we're trying to defense a game. But in the final analysis, when we would say, "Coach, what should we do?" He'd say, "Just hit him, Bobby Tate. Just hit him." You know.
You know,
You can never be wrong by hitting
it
the
all
ball.
boils down to one thing, fellas. You can do all the planning you want. You can have all the schemes you want. But if you don't have the players, well, they'll step up and hit somebody, you're not going to win. And we had the players who would do it, and that's why we won.
I agree.
Okay? And did we lose at Delaware? Was Delaware in the Boardwalk Bowl game? No. I'll tell you what, I think that game made better men, better coaches out of not only us, but the team that we played. Because I think we
They
taught them a
copied.
lesson too.
I agree.
Well, Coach, we didn't lose a game. We just what? Ran out of time.
Time just ran out.
Any comments?
And 2 of them are a book that I've written, Never Lose a Game, Always Have a Trick. And I probably have been bigger in trick plays than anything else I ever done in coaching. And I have what do they call this, a VHS tape, and it's tapes of a clinic that I did, you know, on trick plays. And I don't have many of these left, but it's a book that I wrote on Never Lost a Game, Time Just Ran Out. And I don't know how to share them with you, but, well, I'd be glad to share them with you, you know. And but there's a new book coming out that'll be out in September, and the writer is from Oakland, California, and he wrote a story in Variety magazine, 7 pages, on the Braddock football team. That was published in Variety and very well written. Now he's coming out with a 200-page book.
Wow.
And it's coming out September 1st, and I'm anxious to see it.
I bet he's from Braddock too.
Pardon?
I bet he's from Braddock.
No,
Chuck, I always remember those guys that used to bring to football practice. Remember they used to come in that big old Cadillac, that guy used to come in that big old Cadillac. I tried to think of his name once in a while. You know, and he'd put his outfit on, he'd won a scrimmage. He was 68 years old. He wanted to go out there and scrimmage, you know what I mean? And you looked at that Cadillac, you knew there was money under the front seat. You just didn't want to go in there and take it.
the funniest thing about any coaching, any place I've ever been, was my first game at Braddock. And the band come out on the field. It was 3 gypsy fiddlers, and they're playing songs. How many teams would have gypsy fiddlers?
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
And so Braddock had Prince Philip, the leader of the Gypsy Nation, and you know, until a kid got 16, even a gypsy kid, he had to come to school, you know. And these gypsy kids, one of them came out for football, you know, and he didn't want any parts of any contact, you know. But it was an interesting experience that they were great at teaching violin, and they had a kid that going for the National Forensic Championship in Atlantic City.
Wow.
And the music teacher at Braddock's name was Stanislav Langevich. Don't ask me to spell it, but he took this kid to Atlantic City, you know, and the kid is going to play, you know, the next day, and he says to Professor Lange, can I practice? He had a special, I forget the name, you know, very expensive fiddle, and can I practice, you know, and Gevich is in one room and the kid's in the other room, and he hears the kid, you know, playing, everything seems all right, you know, and he goes to sleep. Next day, he knocks on the door, you know, for his kid to go for the national championship. Kid had taken off and stole the fiddle.
Wow.
But
An opportunist.
believe me, Braddock was something different.
That's the first.
And I was so fortunate, you know, my first year of coaching there, we had 2 great black halfbacks, and could they run. And we had 1 receiver. We only had 3 black kids on the team. And we, preseason practice, there's 16 kids out for football. 3 of them are black. And where's the rest of the team? Coach, they won't come out till school starts. And I said, why? Oh, we haze them. And I said, we're not going to coach you if we don't get those kids out. And they went and got about 10 other black kids to come out. And like I say, Braddock, I'm looking forward to this movie about Braddock because it is different. And the best thing, and you guys know where it was, we went to a camp, Camp Corbley. It's beyond Clymer, but before you get to Punxsutawney. And there was a summer camp in McKeesport Baptist
Well,
Church.
did you go to the church camp up by Glen Campbell, up on the other side of Glen Campbell up there? They have a church camp up there. If you go up, you're between Clymer and you're between Clymer and Punxsutawney, but you're up on a damn back road up there. Nobody you find you up there.
Well, we had 5 black kids after morning practice pick up all their bags and everything and go up. They started hitchhiking, after they ate lunch. And somebody, people were coming in. They said, you better go up and get those kids. No one's going to pick up a black kid, 5 black kids, in that area. And they were there till 11 o'clock that night. And state trooper comes in. And he says, you got to go get those kids. I said, where are they at? And he said, they're at a bar down the road here, and they're playing the pinball machine, And I go down, and they have 98 games still on the pinball machine. They had drilled a hole into the side of it, that they were going in. And I said, you got to go home. I said, Coach, we have no way to go home. I said, why didn't you call somebody from home to come up and get you? They wanted me to pick them up. I didn't want to. They had walked out. They were on their own. But Braddock was something different. And I went there to teach, and I'm certified to teach math, driver training, and physical education. And they don't have any teaching opening, but come up for payday, they can't pay me. And they said, what are you teaching? I said, I'm teaching vocational math. I'm certified in math, but vocational math is different. You're not certified. We can't pay you. And so they did some finagling, and Governor Lawrence was the governor of our state, and he had told his administrative assistant, get that coach certified to teach. So I get my certification papers. I thought I was going to get certified in math. That's what I'm teaching. They certified me every subject, kindergarten through 12th grade, in vocational subjects.
It's a pleasure and honor to play for you guys, and we're glad we're still your friends, and you've made a lasting impression on all of us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking the time, and really enjoyed reflecting back.
Can I tell you something?
Please.
You guys made our lives. You guys are the ones that did it.
Sure.
Because I'm going to tell you something. You can have, like I said before, you can have plays, diagrams, schemes, great coaches. But if you don't have the guys with the heart to go out and execute what you want done, you know what your record is? 0 and whatever you want to make it. Because you don't win a damn game.
I agree.
That's the end of it right there.
I agree.
And that's what goes back to my philosophy. We put everything in, but there's one thing you have to do. You got to go out and hit them.
I agree, Ed.
Remember that.
I agree.
So are we
Thanks,
wrapping
guys.
up? Thank you to WIUP.
Thank
Kelly,
you very much. We
Chris.
appreciate your time.